And I now look to Lord Andrew Adonis, Christ Church and Keble College, to close the case for the proposition.
It's a great pleasure to be here this evening. Can I first of all say, the big problem we've all been wrestling with is how do we get Donald Trump out? Because there's no one this evening, it doesn't matter whether they're for or against this proposition, who thinks he's fit to be president or wants him to continue. Well, we have found the winner. It is my friend James Carville. If he stood making a speech like that this evening, he would get elected. He could be the next president. We don't have to worry about any of these other characters. So James, you're absolutely brilliant and we want more of you. And I hope you're going to be invited back frequently to the Oxford Union. Can I also say what a huge privilege it is to be speaking in a debate where Uwe Kitzinger is present. Uwe was emigrated to Britain at the age of 11 from Germany. He was a founding official of the Council of Europe. He was an advisor to Christopher Soames, who was Churchill's son-in-law when he was a vice president of the European Commission. He was for 20 years a fellow of my college, Nuffield College, here in this great university. He is the best of Britain. He is the best of Europe. We are deeply honoured to have you, sir, with us this evening. Now, Mr. President, I know everybody's looking forward to your return in 65 years' time to make a speech on why Britain should be rejoining the European Union. Now, if you have the misfortune to go through life with the name Adonis, then you're constantly performing under false pretenses. I was apparently the politician in the country who was the greatest offence against the Trade Descriptions Act, until the Conservative Party appointed James Cleverly as their chairman. And then, to cap it all, a guy called Dick Brain became the leader of UKIP. So I'm now in a much better position. However, I do find myself here on false pretenses because when the message came from your office, Mr. President, from somebody described as your chief of staff, I mean, it's great to know that there's such august facilities around the President of the Oxford Union. The message came to me, was relayed to me inaccurately. Would I speak in favour of the proposition this House would impeach Boris Johnson? Now, I leapt at that proposition immediately because I can't think of anything that would be more popular in this university or in the country. But alas, it's only the lesser criminal who we're dealing with at the moment, and that is Donald Trump. Myself, I tend to, because we've had some brilliant speeches, and I thought Jennifer's speech was brilliant this evening. The best argument that you can make against impeachment is that it might actually help Trump. Nobody, as I say, nobody has made an argument that Trump is fit to be president of the United States, that he's not guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors, that he did not seek to procure favors and elicit advantages from President Zelensky. None of those arguments have been made here today. Nobody has been sufficiently naive. Oh, sorry, there is. So we have one. We have the defense counsel for President Trump herself who has come to make the case. But almost no one has made that argument at all. And it would be the height of naivety if you just look at the public record to do so. I was trying to think of what would be as equally naive as to put on a par if you were in a British context to try and bring this to home as a proposition that Trump is not fundamentally guilty of these crimes. And it's something like, in the middle of this general election campaign, that the Liberal Democrats might actually win and Joe Swinson could be Prime Minister in 5 weeks' time, and that all those bar charts you get are actually true. I mean, it's a totally implausible proposition, but it does at least enable me to tell you my latest and great joke, which is, you know these bar charts you get saying the Liberal Democrats are going to win, which apparently are flooding around Oxford at the moment. There is one that has just been broadcast in private eye, so it must be true, which has the Liberal Democrats winning. They are on 32% of the vote, and the Tories are only on 28%. But apparently it's in response to the question, would you vote for Joe Swinson if the alternative was being slowly lowered into a tank filled with deadly piranha fish and ravenous man-eating sharks, and the only way to stop you dying screaming in agony was to vote Liberal Democrat? Now, it's that kind of level of proposition that's required to think that Donald Trump isn't fundamentally guilty. So the the issue at stake here is, are we or are we not doing him a favour by impeaching him, which is the argument that's been used. And I'm not in favour of doing him any favours. Now, James is of the view that the politics of this now align, and that it's easier for Democrats in the House to vote for the impeachment. By the way, I love the idea of impeachment, because impeachment, which started in Britain, of course, it was a constitutional remedy that developed against the Stuarts in the 17th century. Impeachment is by the House of Commons before, the articles of impeachment were historically by the House of Commons before the House of Lords. Now, when Jennifer very kindly said that I was an MP, I've never been an MP, I've always been a member of the House of Lords. I cannot wait to have Boris Johnson in front of me and we actually have the impeachment. But we haven't done it for 200 years in this country, and we haven't done it because it hasn't been politically thought to be sensible, and James is of the view that now that it's aligned and it might well work, and that's great. If that is the case, then I'm all in favour. But there is another argument which seems to me to be more fundamental, which is the reason why you should vote for this motion this evening, which is that everything cannot and should not in a democracy, and a democracy is a law-governed and a popular-governed state, but fundamentally it's the law and the will of the people going together. You should not, in a law-governed state, allow fundamental breaches of the law by the head of the government to go unpunished. And in a republic of laws, and the United States is the supreme public of laws in the world, if you allow that to happen, you denigrate and ultimately destroy the very republic which you've established in the first place. And that seems to me the fundamental argument. And when you look at the actual case that's at stake, Candy said it was about quid pro quo, was a favour asked of President Zelensky, which he then granted. Quid pro quo is entirely irrelevant. The Constitution of the United States defines as a high crime and misdemeanour the head of the government asking improperly for favours, soliciting improperly for advantages, seeking to bribe or corrupt improperly other public officials at home or abroad. All of those are what's at stake in the impeachment process. And there is an absolutely cast iron case to be made on the basis of the testimony of those who were a party to the phone conversations of President Trump that he is guilty. Therefore, the right thing for a republic of laws to do is to see that a trial takes place with the articles of impeachment brought by the House and the trial by the Senate. The House should impeach him. The Senate should try him, because if he is guilty of these crimes, then, in the words of the greatest American president, it may be the greatest speech ever made by a politician. It is for us, here dedicated to the great task that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth, which requires people to obey the law and to be held to account if they breach it. And that is the fundamental, unimpeachable argument for supporting this motion this evening. Thank you very much.